Tell me, Renee, you're living life to the full. Give us some advice. How's it done?
I think the main thing is that you have to recognise what your passions are and go for those. It's amazing how much you can fit into your day if you just choose the things that you're really passionate about and the things that you would actually be living for anyway.
Wow, okay. So in and amongst everything else, I mean, you've just had a baby, you're doing all of these different roles. How do you juggle? How do you make sure that you don't just do maintenance?
Yeah, I get asked that a lot. And again, my answer is, if you really love it, you can usually find time for it. So, every now and then maybe you need to do a stock take and think, okay, what isn't actually important to me? What is it that I'm just going through the motions of because, I thought I would like it, but I don't. For me personally, I'm really lucky because everything that I'm doing at the moment is a passion. I actually gain energy from it rather than lose energy.
That's fantastic. That's really great. So tell me, what is the test? You try something, how do you know if you love it or don't love it?
I think you've got to give it some time. You've got to give yourself...
Have you ever started something and thought, this is not for me, and then it grew on you?
Yes, lots.
Yes.
Yeah, and the other moment is actually what I call the precipice moment. So, is that moment, I remember when I was learning to ski and you're hovering on the edge of something and it looks extremely steep and you just think, if I don't give myself a little push to go over the edge, I'm never ever going to do it. It's not as steep as it looks. And it's the same for anything. There's the slope is of course not downwards, it's upwards. It's a very steep learning curve. So when you're at the bottom looking up, you think there's no way I'm ever going to get up there. But actually, if you just make that start, you are actually going to be able to get there. And by about halfway up, you'll be able to look back and go, see how far I've come. Look up and go, okay, that looks okay up there. And you'll be able to tell if you actually want to keep going.
Okay, so what is the test of wanting to keep going? Because often you start and you think, wow, this is really hard.
Yeah. I think if you really love it, if it is something that you gain a lot of joy out of and that you feel fulfilled doing. I mean, not everybody. I don't think it's true that people kind of know what they're on this earth to do. That you're not born knowing that stuff. You have to actually try it and then you'll figure it out. Yeah.
So tell me about your bucket list. Do you have one?
It's not really a bucket list.
No.
I actually think bucket list is the wrong word.
Yeah, right.
I think I'd probably call it a life list instead.
Fantastic. Tell me about your life list. What's on it?
Well, I think at the moment, I really just want to make stories.
Sure.
Make stories that count, make stories that people will listen to and maybe be influenced by.
Right.
And I think most writers and theatre makers are like
that. So
it's
just flowing out of you, essentially. You're waking up in the morning with snippets of conversation or snippets of stories.
No, wish it was that easy. No, it doesn't happen like that at all. No, you have to, what happens is that little things come at you through your day, and of course you're not walking through the world as a writer, you're walking through the world as, in your normal job or in your role as a mother or doctor or whatever. And these things come at you, and I have a little notebook, and if I can, I write them down. Otherwise, I hold them in my brain, and I try and write them down later before I forget.
My husband has those notebooks. I sometimes come across them, and they're little
$5.
They're
from
little
the warehouse stationery.
Disjointed sentences and ideas. And I think, gosh, okay, so that's how you make a novel.
Yeah, and shopping lists, because I use it for everything.
Okay.
But sometimes I can be sitting in a lecture looking really studious writing notes, but actually what I'm writing is an idea for my next. I'm not at all paying attention because something maybe that I've been listening to has triggered me, and I just go off in my own little dream.
So what's your legacy? What do you want to leave? What are you trying to achieve?
I don't know.
Big questions.
Yeah.
But obviously you're trying to tell stories, and there's stories that otherwise wouldn't be told.
Mostly, yeah. Maybe. I mean, I don't know that they would. I think it's a little bit egotistical to say they'd never be told. I think maybe I'm the first to pick up on them and say, hey, this is a really cool story. I want to have a go at it.
So you have a different viewpoint because you don't look like everybody else. Although from the statistics throughout the weekend, Renee, it looks like we're taking over.
Yeah, we are taking over.
But your experience has been different. You had an experience as an outsider.
Yeah, but also an insider. I'm an in-betweener. and that's actually my role, and I think if you actually talk to a lot of creative people, that is in fact what they are. A lot of people have grown up with a foot in two worlds in some way, they've, even somebody that appears extremely confident sometimes. I mean, I can appear really confident, but actually I've spent quite a lot of my life really uncertain, really unsure, feeling like an outsider and trying to figure out how to get inside.
Sure.
And then I realised actually it was an advantage to know what it's like to stand on both sides.
Yeah. So tell me about that, because I think being an in-betweener is going to be increasingly important to New Zealand, especially with our demographic transformation.
Yes, well, in fact, it's actually going to be very normal to be an in-betweener.
Yeah,
I think nearly everybody is an in-betweener in some way, because we live in a bicultural nation to start with.
Yes.
That is becoming multicultural, and so all of us at some stage have been in a world where we don't quite feel like we fit. And so in a way, that's why I think the stories that I'm writing they're getting a lot of traction, because people identify with them, even people that you wouldn't expect. So maybe I write Chinese New Zealand stories a lot of the time, but actually I get a lot of people that are not Chinese New Zealanders who identify.
Give me an example. I mean, of somebody identifying with it and being helped by it that you weren't expecting.
Oh gosh. One of the things I like doing is hanging out in the foyer of the theatre and talking to people when they come out. And
so tell me about what happened during your last play, because you just put on a play, didn't you?
Yes, yeah.
And what was it like hanging out in the foyer after that?
It was really fun, because we had Chinese tea, so that people would hang around and drink tea and talk.
Yes.
So it was really fun, and I met a lot of people that I hadn't seen for a long time.
And did the play have the impact that you were expecting it to have?
Yes, I think so. I mean, it's a second outing.
Sure.
So I already knew that it had appeal, but we did really well.
Yeah.
And I think people really identified with the story.
Great. And it gave you great joy.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So talk to me about that, how to maximise that kind of living life to the full, optimising your full potential. What drives you to do that?
I mean, I've been doing a bit of thinking about the concept of a bucket list, and I think the important thing about a bucket list is that it's not set in stone.
No.
It's not. It changes as you grow and as your life changes. So my bucket list when I was 25 was finding a man, buying a house, getting a really great job. But now, I'm 41 and I've got 2 kids and a husband, and a house. So those are ticked off on my bucket list,
right? Yes.
And I've got a new bucket list now.
Right.
So my bucket list includes eventually going to Antarctica on a writing residency, for example.
Fantastic.
So
yeah, you'll have to go. Jane Usher's just been.
Yeah.
She went and she did this amazing photographic expedition, and
I know.
It's going to be.
I've actually already been to Antarctica. I backpacked there, but. Yeah, people don't
backpack to Antarctica.
You can.
Really?
Yeah.
How did you? What did you hitch on a boat, or what did you do?
Yeah, you do. You just show up in Ushuaia, which is where the boats leave from, and a few days, before the boats start leaving, and then you basically find out from various agencies in town which boats have got places on them, and you get on them for half price.
Wow, that's amazing. So you're a real adventurer. You're brave. It's quite adventurous.
Oh, it's fun. There's lots of backpackers.
So tell me why you're passionate about Antarctica. Why do you want to go back?
Why do I want to go to Antarctica? It's an amazing place. It's every country and no country, because I mean they have bases there,
right? And
the base is your territory, but apart from that, it's a empty canvas.
Yeah.
But it's not empty at all. It's full of life. It's full of stories.
Right.
I mean, I'm not exactly going to write a story about a penguin.
No.
Or maybe I might. I might write a story that includes a penguin. In fact, I have already.
Right.
But I think there's a lot of other sort of amazing stories in there. I mean, one of the amazing things about Antarctica is it's also full of shipwrecks and evidence of human activity.
Yes.
So people might think it's a really bleak landscape, but actually lots and lots of people have been there.
So talk to me about being a Chinese New Zealander, because as you know, the Chinese are not very good culturally at talking about the end of life and preparing themselves and saying, all right, well, given that I've got 5,000 days to live, as Sir Ray Avery just said, I need to get on with it. You know, culturally, how were you brought up to think about mortality? We didn't talk about it, May.
We did, because my dad was a doctor,
Right.
so we were
That's
aware that
different.
people died. I didn't actually have to deal with it until my grandfather died, and I was 10. I didn't go to the funeral, but...
Was it a Buddhist funeral? Was it?
No, it was a Christian one, but it was in Hong Kong.
Right.
And my dad just went back and dealt with it, and as the eldest son, and we stayed. So we weren't really involved, but it forced me to sort of think about how I felt about, because this was somebody that I remembered, not very well, but I did remember, and how did I feel about that?
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. So as a consequence of that, I mean, are you prepared? Do you have a will? Do you have life insurance? Blah, 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 all of that sort of stuff. I mean, generally, the Asians are not good at preparing and being prepared.
Yeah. Although, do you think it's because they don't like to think about it? Yeah.
I think it's because of superstition.
Yes.
I think they think if they think about it, they might bring it on.
Yeah.
Which is pretty irrational if you think about it.
Yeah, strangely enough, I did actually have trouble getting people to come to my play, which was about dead people. So, yeah.
So that's interesting, isn't it? So
Yeah.
most people are very happy to talk about living life to the full and having fun.
Yeah.
But you know, the best way to motivate yourself to get on with it is just to recognise you're mortal. I mean, we are all going to die. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
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 So how did you find people interacted or were impacted by your play?
The Bone Feeder, the play about dead people.
Yes.
It's an interesting story, because actually the story itself of the Ventnor and the dead Chinese miners that were lost in Hokianga is a story that was suppressed by the Chinese community for very many years. It was almost forgotten, and that was indeed because people don't like talking about the dead.
Right.
But once it was rediscovered, it's been embraced by both the Chinese and Maori communities because of what it represents.
Well, it's a connection between them.
Absolutely, and also it does show that the cultures are very similar in the way that they respect the dead and the way that they consider the dead to still have an influence on the living.
Yes.
So there was a lot of resonance there. So once we started going into it, people reacted extremely emotionally. So I remember every time I've told the story to people who don't know about the play, some of them, their eyes actually fill with tears just on a one-liner, me telling them what the play is about. So it is something that does hit a lot of people.
Understood.
And it's to do with the lines of responsibility to your family.
Yes.
It's not about death at all.
No.
And in a way, I think, going back to the bucket list as well, maybe the bucket list is also, firstly, it's a promise to yourself, but secondly, it's also in a way looking forward so that you can prepare for your death and to prepare to look after your family.
Yes.
So, my bucket list is actually now very family based. It's all about looking after my kids and making sure they have the best opportunities.
Right. No, I think that's incredibly profound and deep. I think you're right. In a sense, a bucket list is a preparation to die, because it says, well, I'm going to die, so these are the things I want to do before I die. We need to get on with it.
No, it's a preparation to live.
Oh, yeah, it's a preparation to live. Well, sometimes though, in preparing to die, you prepare to live. The trouble is that sometimes if you're not aware if you're not focused on the fact that you are mortal, you just don't get on with it. You never live.
Yeah.
I know lots of people who never do. They just spend all their lives saving up their lives for I don't know what. Passes very quickly, and I think as a doctor you're very aware of that.
Yeah. You only get one go.
Yeah, you do.
I mean, it depends on what religion you follow, but yeah, mostly you only get one go.
Well, I don't know, this afterlife thing.
Yeah.
It's a very tough gig.
Yeah.
Can't quite see it, not quite sure about it. And it's always very baffling to me that you want to think about another life when most people have trouble just dealing with this one.
Yeah.
So, So if you were to give one major piece of wisdom to people as to how you make sure you really get on and live your life, what would that be, Renee?
I think you I'm only allowed one, aren't I? One
Well,
piece.
no. You're a poet and a playwright. You're allowed more than one.
Okay.
You go for it, girl.
Well, I think going back to the thing about passion, I think it's really important that people find their passion.
Right.
They need to learn how to recognise what it is what their passion is when they find it. And the second piece of advice would be to take risks, because you only get one go. Yeah. So you might as well use it on a really big chance.
Wow, that's pretty good. It's pretty good.